This podcast is meant for general health information and is not meant to override any medical advice. All questions will be screened and not contain any personal information. If you want a private consultation, contact us via positivechoice.org, or you can contact your provider directly. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to the Positive Choice Wellness Podcast. My name is Melanie. I'm an exercise physiologist.
My name is Kimberly, and I'm a registered dietitian.
And we have back again our guest, Brittany Reid, who has a PsyD in clinical psychology. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yay.
Good to be here.
Yay. We're glad you're here.
Yes.
I know your episode you did was like finding inner stillness the last time you were on, and that one was a hit. Like a lot of people listened to that episode.
Oh, yeah? Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
It had some pretty good numbers. So I was like, okay, we should bring Brittany back because clearly she's liked. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about today, I just want to check in and, what brings you joy today, Kimberly?
Oh, well, let me tell you, I was thinking about this. What's actually bringing me joy is I've started making my own bread. It's so fun. Now, not sourdough. I'm not on that level because it's like an actual pet, but I've started making my own bread in the bread maker. And honestly, I find it so fun. It's like, I didn't know you just throw it all in there and mix it, like it stirs it for you even. So anyway, it's so easy, but it's making me happy.
The future is now.
And it's so silly. It's a gift I got like when we got married, my husband and I, like 4 years ago, and I just busted it out the other week. So
hey, we did that with our cold brew
nice.
coffee maker. I hear you. Yeah, same thing. I was been married for like 8 years. Let's pull this thing out.
Let's use this. Yeah, totally. What about you though, Melanie?
What brings me joy today? I think what brings me joy actually is coffee. Because my husband, who is a former barista coffee enthusiast, he decided that he wanted to get I don't know, they're like these like percolator type mocha pot thingies where it's pressure and it cooks the coffee and makes this like concentrated espresso. So we got these like double wall clear glass insulated little teeny coffee cups. I drink this little tiny coffee cup in the morning. I feel all cool with my little
fancy.
espresso. I have my
gosh.
built-in barista who lives in my house, and it just brings me joy.
Oh, that's
So
lovely.
That's what brings me joy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
How about you, Brittany? Anything bringing you joy today?
Well, the things that you guys are talking about, food and coffee, I mean, I always like try to think about my son, of course. He brings me so much joy, but he's also 15.
Okay.
We just
Say no more.
had a oopsie at the DMV, yes, and ill-prepared. But you have to go with the flow, so there's that. But then I think about just the food and stuff too. I make this with this blueberry vinegar with like mixed berries and mint and watermelon.
Ooh,
it's delish for the summer. And yeah, I love coffee too. So you guys got me all. A good cup of coffee is the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
I care not as much about it as my husband, but he will smell all the beans to make sure they're the right kind.
Wow.
And so I'm like, I was all about just the flavored ones. And he's like, that tastes like chemicals. So I was like, fine, whatever, Mr. Coffee Enthusiast. But anyways, I don't want to get into that. It's too much. So we are going to talk today and completely shift gears now away from coffee. And we're going to talk about actually one of our really cool counselors we have sitting with us right now, Brittany, because we thought it would be fun to chat a little bit about what Brittany does at Positive Choice. Yes. I thought it would be nice to get to know you a little bit, and you can kind of explain, what do you do here? What are some of the things you do at Positive Choice? What are some things you've been behind? Anything you wanted to share about that?
Yeah, definitely. So at Positive Choice, originally I was brought on board to work with the full modified meal replacement program. And also since then I've done a lot of other things. So I've done some public speaking and talked about stress management and doing the Wellness Academy for nurses, and really just talking about wellness in general. And I really feel like that is what I do with the full modified meal replacement program. I feel like I bring in that each week I facilitate a group and talk a lot about just how to be well in your journey on a very low calorie diet. But with that, I mean, when we talk about stress management, I mean, it's underneath everything. When you talk about your personal why or what brings you joy, tapping into the root of those things is really key. Just even talking about it with you guys this morning, it brings me just all the goodness. It feels happy and healthy and motivates me to think about those things. So trying to figure out a way to get people to hear that, I suppose.
Yeah.
I like
That's awesome.
that. And one thing to kind of share with everybody who's listening too, because we have a lot of programs that we offer at Positive Choice. Myself and Kimberly do not teach actually, or not moderate. What would you call it? Instruct, I guess, not really teach, but instruct or facilitate the type of program that you do, Brittany, because we do more of like the food and exercise behavior change side on the other realm of Positive Choice. You're more of the stress management and behavior change, right? Let's get right down to the point kind of class, right? Is that what I'm assuming is the case?
Yeah.
Having never taught it before.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, and I like that idea too of like exercise, diet is more like the behavior components because it's what you're actually doing. And it is nice to think about our classes as a little bit more in terms of the cognitive piece. So you being in the full modified medically monitored classes, you're on a shake program. So basically we eliminate most of or all of the food that you're having, and you lose weight by being on kind of this balanced, medically supervised meal replacement program. It is designed to be very low calorie, and in the interim, so you have this lovely medical support. You're meeting with our nurse practitioners. They're watching your medical lab work and all of that. My job is to come in and support you week to week to reach your goals in terms of kind of what you do without the food. So we take away that piece of the puzzle, and now what? So that's where we're starting to look at, well, what are your stressors and what is your, your underneath everything that's kind of going on? How do you tolerate stress? How do you deal with and manage your daily routine sometimes without that comfort of food? And we do also have, you can be on the meal replacements with a small meal as well. But again, taking away a big portion of something that we might not even think about during the day. So we might not even think about how much we eat or how much we go in the kitchen or just eating with friends and family, like the joyous parts of eating. It's just really to kind of quiet that down and take a look at everything else that's going on the inside. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a few people that I work with, training side, of course, who have gone through the medical weight management program, gone through the very low calorie diets that we offer. And I think the number one complaint that they had was, I have to go out with my friends or out with my family and now I can't eat. And it's like womp womp. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
On my end, I'm like, I'm so sorry you have to deal with that. That's really tough. But I can see how that would be a challenge because of the whole aspect of our culture being so based on food. A lot of socialization that we do in this country is oriented around food. I mean, heck, we have celebrations coming up in the next couple of weeks that are oriented around food. So I can see how it is a major part of our lives, and that taking that one component away actually could feel pretty debilitating almost.
Definitely. And I think you're spot on in terms of culturally, it's everywhere. So part of what we talk about in our groups is kind of letting go of what that means. So if I'm going to switch from inviting somebody to take a walk rather than meet at a restaurant, what does that look like for my immediate surroundings and my friends and family? I also don't have to completely take away all the food. So I can stick with that small meal. We call it modified. And can I sit and tolerate having kind of a small salad, or, they offer the small meal is like 3 ounces of a protein. So I still can have that with me. And how can I manage that? Because that also too can evoke a lot of emotion and fear. Because sometimes people like kind of the black or whiteness of being on the all food or all nothing, all shakes or all nothing. So there's that piece too. So I think there's so many components involved in terms of having to manage my social network and what that looks like. But it also starts to promote things from the inside out in terms of boundary setting and doing what's right for myself, putting myself first. A lot of times people haven't put themselves first, and really looking at thinking things all the way through. So, I have gotten myself kind of into this situation. I've done all the research in the past. Like I have had these foods before, like really taking a look at what it is that is the function and the motivation behind the food. Like, am I going to be with the people or am I going to be with
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, I keep, because I have a person who currently, I actually think she's in your class, but she's currently going through the program right now, and I think that was the one thing she told me when she wanted to sign up for it, because I've been working with her for years, just training her on the side. But one of the things she mentioned was like, I really just love this, how easy it is. 5 meals, I don't have to think, and you just kind of just can consume them and go about your day with these shakes or bars or soups or whatever it is that you have. And obviously, I personally have never gone through a program like that, so I don't have a lot of firsthand experience on what it's like. I only really rely on what my patients tell me about it and their experiences on it. But I know for her, it's been overwhelmingly positive. Just the lack of having to think. And she's on the modified, so she also has that luxury of having that tiny little meal. And every week we meet, she tells me about the little meal that she made, and it's a very exciting time. But it's working so well for her. She's down, I think, like 30 pounds now. Like, she's doing fantastic on this program.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
I know that oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and I think that that's where the mentality goes to. Like, it almost becomes really easy for some people to be on a regimented, I don't have to think kind of mentality, and you get used to that. And to me too, that sometimes that comes with a little bit of fear when I start to think about going back on a full meals.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking I actually have a family member who's done the program, and they traveled just for like, I don't know, whatever, 5 days or something while on the program, and loved the simplicity of like knowing what I'm sticking to. I don't have to like research where I'm going and like, look up the food and see what it's like and blah, blah, blah. But I love that, because you mentioned earlier, it kind of like taking that piece out, it makes you like sit there with, like just you and like your thoughts and like your mindset and stuff around all those kinds of things. That's so interesting to me, because that's so like not my wheelhouse. So that's so fascinating.
Yeah, definitely.
That you like work with people on that.
Is that what they call like food noise? Like, is that what we call this? Like food noise? Where all the rumblings of I gotta eat, it's all going on up here in the head?
Yeah, so
I don't know. I've recently heard that terms. I don't know.
That's a newer one for me, actually. But what I can imagine that means, it makes me think of like emotional versus. So like, am I actually hungry? How many times do we eat just to eat? It doesn't matter what is happening, and kind of changing that mentality to like food being fuel and putting the right things in my body for my gut biome and all those kinds of fascinating, where there's so much information actually coming out about how the gut is like the second brain, and the amazing, like it is extremely important in terms of what I'm literally putting inside of my body. And a lot of the things, over time that aren't so healthy that we put in our body, we know now are causing problems and health issues. And a lot of that through this modified meal plan can be reduced. And so it's a beautiful thing, aside from even just the weight loss or the simplicity of the program or any of it aside. Like, one of the most beautiful things that I see is people coming off medications and being able to get from A to B without having to stop, and tying their shoes. I mean, there's so many things that we call, like non-scale victories that people really get their lives back, and they hone into their why, which I think is also something that our groups show. And that's what we do, is that, I want to be there for my grandchildren that I don't have yet. And I want to actually get on the floor and play with them, those kinds of things that, a lot of times we take for granted and we don't even think about. So to me, there's just so much involved in taking a look at, like even just understanding, we have a group on like rules and messages, just even taking a look at all the things that we have been pre-programmed to think, and moving in a way where we don't use food to kind of mind that gap. We don't use food to like get our needs met any longer. We actually have access to do that. So I'll always talk to my son about like, we'll talk things through and get through it and all that. And I'm like, okay, now do you want to go have maybe a treat or something about it? Whereas if you really think about it, previously, we do that. Something bad happens or something good happens, doesn't matter, but we utilize food a lot to compensate. We teach youngins at, very, very young age, like, oh, you want to have an ice cream, or, if anything happens, I'll give you this, or, we use a lot of food to reinforce behavior. So that's
one of my first memories is getting a candy bar when I fell down some bleachers when I was a kid.
Right? Seriously.
Like,
isn't that amazing?
It's like one of my first memories. My mom's like, that was the only way I could get you to stop crying. And I was like, oh. Well, and I vividly remember that entire experience, but I also remember the candy bar that I was eating because I was like 3, but it was bigger than my head.
Yes.
Because, traumatic experience rolling down some bleachers. Clearly I remembered the candy bar part of that. So yeah, right. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, and if we talk about the brain, it makes sense, right? Because if we hurt ourselves or something bad happens and all those hormones are going through the body, if we give ourselves, or something is given to us like a candy bar, that overrides that pleasure center. Dopamine is just, it works. So that's something else I think that is taught widely in our classes too, that, food actually works. So it's not about it not working. It's about thinking it all the way through and thinking about the long-term consequences and really focusing on coming into your body and being with yourself and understanding, all the complexities of that. Like, do I actually want to go to that restaurant? Do I actually want to be with those people? Can they be with me? A lot of times people have said in our groups, I said no, because I actually didn't want to go, just learning, or, I went, someone just mentioned recently, they went to the fair and they did really well. And they were like, I actually enjoy going. I liked meeting up with the people that we went with. I liked engaging with my kiddo and their kids. And I loved watching the people, and I stayed on my shakes. And I realized I actually like going to the fair.
Wow. That's so sweet, because it gives you other things to focus on, right? Like when you take out that piece of like, you can't, dwell on it or overthink it quite as much because you have this like set plan. So you're able to enjoy other things more. That's really cool.
Yeah. I like that because, I guess, we do teach behavior change in our classes. Like we're teaching like some of the mindfulness components. It's not solely just nutrition and fitness that we focus on. And there are conversations we have that kind of try to dig a little deeper, not nearly as deep probably as your classes will go, but we touch our toe on the surface of the water. All right, there we go. We did it. Yay.
Yeah.
So we'll periodically dip our toe in that water and, try to get to the crux of like what is going on with some of the underlying stuff here. And how much are we relying on food to fill that void that we're having? And, I usually use an analogy of like a dam holding back water. And like, when there's a lot of emotion, sometimes we use food to like shove it into the dam to stop the water. We're like, no, don't want to feel those feelings. But like in the inverse, if we're not meeting needs elsewhere, we could be very much like, well, we were empty now. Let's fill up with the food, right? It can go both directions. I feel like we are either using it as a crutch to not feel our feelings or to very much feel something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it is so useful for both of those reasons completely. And it's there all the time. It's encouraged. It's not even like a taboo, right? Like I can go to the store and buy food, and nobody's going to think anything. Like it's very accessible. It's very easy to get. It's very inexpensive if needed. It's very, very useful. So that's all. That's like beside the point, right? Like, what is it? So if it works, then why would I, like, what am I getting out of, like, why would I stop if that's what I'm getting, if I'm getting so much from it? And that's a lot too, that we talk about too, because even with that, there comes a lot of those very challenging feelings, which most recently came up in some of my groups too, which is kind of the guilt and the shame of the aftermath, right? Kind of doing the same thing over again, wishing I would do something different, and all the emotions that come with that, and getting into the weeds of that is very important. And accepting those pieces of myself that I don't really like is very important. And figuring out how to find that is key as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think I've heard it many times, at least within the people who work within the like bariatric surgery type part of our department, where they talk about like a lot of the times people get surgeries because they're not dealing with some stuff going on mentally, and they're thinking that they can just get surgery, it'll fix them. And it's not always the case. There's a lot of work that's involved. And also, you still have to get to the crux of the issues. And so without doing anything invasive, what I think I really appreciate about the program that you'd educate in is the fact that we're not making this permanent, life-altering physical modification to your body in some way, shape, or form. We're not even technically even putting medications inside of you. That's not even any aspect of it. It's literally you're put on this program that's pretty cut and dry. You get X amount of this, X amount of times a day, blah, 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 pretty straightforward. And then now we get to do the work.
Yes.
Now we've, as I'll bring back the new word we've learned, food noise, this new phrase, we clear out the food noise. Now we get to the crux of the issue. And I think that's really powerful to be able to have people sit down and feel their feelings.
Most definitely. And it's quite amazing too, that people will realize that they can still find other ways mentally to check out. So I think that's also really important, even when you do take kind of the food away in their home environment, people realize that that they can still kind of check out and be outside of their situation, or find other ways to deal and manage with their situations, which kind of gives them motivation to find more effective ways to cope, because they start to see that it's not just the food, it's a me issue. Like this is part of how I've learned how to cope throughout my life. And also having that power to know that I can do something different and think my way through things and have access to effective coping skills that actually, like, nothing's going to take away the problems that are going to happen. That stress is going to come, but the way that I deal with it significantly helps me kind of live in a more peaceful way, right? So I can make things worse. I can make a situation, way worse. If I lose a job, or if I have a relationship issue, I can make it worse by things I do. I can yell at people more. It makes it worse. I can go eat more, or go have, I can make those things worse. But when I learn how to cope, it doesn't mean those things are necessarily going to change. It means I can pause and learn that in that pause is beauty and calmness and stillness, and I don't have to make things worse for myself anymore.
Ooh, that was so good.
Yeah.
I love that. I feel more peace just hearing you say that.
So having choice.
I've taught something similar.
What was that?
I said I've kind of taught something similar to that. In I tell people, you can't stop from feeling your feelings. You can't stop from feeling sad. You can't stop from feeling stressed. You can't stop from feeling bored for any emotion, insert emotion. You can't not feel that. You can control how you respond to it. And that's the part we wanted to focus on, which is you're going to have, I tell people too, your life's going to throw you curveballs. Things are going to happen. You have no control over, and it's just how it is. How you react and handle that situation is ultimately what matters the most there, because it's going to happen. Is the next part's on you. And I think, especially for people who use food as a means of coping with that, it's essentially kicking the can down the road a little bit, if you will, where, they're not dealing with it right now, but they're gonna at some point.
Yes.
At some point they are, when we don't know, but they've been kicking that can for a while. Maybe it's time, right? Maybe it finally hits that wall.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But then they can finally get to the crux of what is the real issue here. What do I need to focus on? And I think it's a really just a great thing, a great tool to be able to have in your toolbox, to be able to manage how you're feeling in a healthy way, rather than using food as a coping mechanism.
Yes, definitely. And I think too,
oh, sorry. Okay. I was just going to ask, can you, I don't know if you have an example, or I'm just interested to know of the transformations that you've seen in class from someone who's or group, I guess I should say, not class, but someone who comes in just getting started and is I would assume some people sign up just to do the thing and lose the weight, right?
Yeah.
And then the end comes around and they're they've undergone, they understand what they've this whole relationship that they've had with food, and had a whole mindset transformation.
Yes, I think.
Do you have any examples?
Yeah, definitely. I can think of one person that comes to mind. Multiple people are starting to come into mind, but in particular, this one patient was in the beginning just kind of very just kind of naturally kind of irritable, and not in a unhealthy way, even just kind of pessimistic. And I'm here to do this, I'm going to survive, I'm going to get through. They even bought a bunch of chewing gum to help them if they got hungry, just to sup with them. I'm just going to chew my gum and I'm going to grin and bear it and get through this, because I've done it before and I can do it again. And as we kind of went through most of the sessions, things did start to change. So there was the motivation behind what this person was doing shifted from like the gums started to kind of subside, and it turned more into this I get to mentality. This person like understood what emotions meant and then thought like, I get it. I understand my emotions now. Now, why are they still there? Watching like her go through that was absolutely amazing. And by the end of it, it was more about understanding why this person did what they did, why, and understood that I could choose to do what I want to do now. Like they didn't feel like they had to give in to what anybody was thinking, what anybody was doing. They started to put themselves first. And usually at the end, you can hear when people are talking, just the freedom in the way that they're speaking. It's amazing. And it makes me very hopeful that that will last long term, because those are things that now they have inside of them to access for sure.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's so fun for you as an instructor. I feel like to like, I don't know, get to witness that. But that's what's so neat about that to me is that it's not just like weight loss, getting healthy, off some medications, yay you, right? It's like your whole life changes, Generally
Yes.
people are happier when this environment up here is a little bit nicer to live in, right?
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I think that's what people find. I think people find that they like themselves, or they're doing things in a way that is in alignment with their values and who they really want to be.
Yeah.
Ooh, I feel like you just hit the nail on the head. They like themselves. There's so much freedom in that, because if you don't, right, it's like that's just such a toxic like headspace to be in. So the freedom from that's so cool.
Yeah, and learning to be kind
Amazing.
to yourself. We're so nice
True.
to everybody else. There's so much in that. Yeah.
Literally. Yeah.
I have a lot of conversations with my patients about that, because I think probably because of like personal experience and my own upbringing and being like, yeah, you're living in your own head and your own body like for the rest of your life. Maybe you should like yourself a little bit, because you can't really get away from that person.
Ever.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like, kind of have to like you. Sorry, you're stuck with you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And there's a lot of like research behind the like talk therapeutic piece of the group, because Dan Siegel, Name It to Tame It, he talks a lot about that, and it's very well researched now that just by naming things, saying things out loud, decreases the intensity of how it's happening in your head and in your body. So there's just so much to be said to just talk it out and say things out loud and feel safe, and that helps decrease that guilt and shame. It helps you accept who you are, for better or for worse, and move forward in a way that's thriving.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And I very much appreciate that, because we all should be thriving. I mean, it's the whole Kaiser slogan, like thrive, but literally, please do. But unfortunately, it's about that time. We must go now. But I very much appreciate you coming on, Brittany, to talk about all these things. It was
Thank you.
It was so enlightening just to hear about like all these really fantastic changes that we can, help people kind of be encouraged to embrace, if you will. And it was just great having you on. It really is.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, you guys.
Yes,
Of course. And for anybody who's curious, if you are wondering, our medical weight management program, anyone can sign up. You don't have to be a Kaiser member. This applies to anybody out there who might want some extra help, trying to get to their goals. If you are interested, you're more than welcome to reach out to Positive Choice to get signed up for our program. Or you don't have to do it at all. That's totally fine too. You can just listen to this and keep doing your thing. But with that being said, make sure you like, share, subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment below. But until next time, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.